Hello, I am Symbio16 and this is A Shining Story. This video is meant to inform anyone who's interested, and it will be split into multiple sections. The first section, apart from this introduction, will be a brief informational history about the Shining series and events involving its fan base. There's a massive amount of information available about this series and each individual game, so I will try to keep information succinct and relevant. If you're interested in researching any further, I encourage you to go to google.com and just start typing. The second section will be primarily about me, my involvement in the series and in YouTube, and my opinions on the matter. Section 3 will be a brief word from YouTube user Total Biscuit, who was kind enough to lend his support as he was affected as well. And Section 4 will actually be a completely separate video that will very roughly cover the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, claims and counterclaims process, YouTube's role in all this, fair use laws, and additional contact information. In 1991, a game titled Shining in the Darkness was released on the Japanese Sega Mega Drive, retitled Shining in the Darkness for Sega's Genesis outside of Japan. It was a solid turn-based dungeon crawler, save the princess type of game, and earned high praise from reviewers. Even the re-release of the game on the Wii's Virtual Console 20 years later received a 7 out of 10 from IGN. Shining in the Darkness was one of the first RPGs to be released on the Genesis and began a series of titles that would span an impressive 15 consoles over 2 decades and even a pair of anime television shows. The next game in the series was called Shining Force. Released in 1992, it was a major gameplay shift, going from first-person perspective dungeon crawler to a top-down strategy game with a dozen controllable characters on a battlefield. It can be argued that the Shining series started as an attempt by Sega to cover all its bases on their consoles as far as the usual gameplay genres, because it emulated styles that Nintendo and other developers pioneered. Over time, though, the series had found a following and carved its own niche. Of the first 12 games, 11 were either in the dungeon crawler or SRPG format. I've excluded the Shining Force 3 Premium Disc as it's not really a full game. The last game in this set was Shining Force 3, and although technically a sequel to Shining the Holy Ark, the connection between the two games was minimal. The transition from Shining the Holy Ark to Shining Force 3 is the same transition made by Shining in the Darkness to Shining Force 1, from dungeon crawler to strategic RPG. It was split into 3 parts simply titled Scenarios 1, 2, and 3, and here's where things start to go south. The Sega Saturn was nearing its end in any country that wasn't called Japan when both Shining Force 3 and another RPG called Grandia were released in December of 1997. Whether it was decided by executives in Sega of Japan or Bernie Stolar, then president and COO of Sega of America, is still unknown, but the decision was made not to localize Grandia on the Saturn for any other country and to translate only Shining Force 3's first scenario. The game's ending scene was altered to give it a bit more closure, but it was obvious the story was not over. Bear with me here, this is all relevant, I promise. A couple years later, fans assembled and brainstormed on how to persuade Sega and Camelot to translate the remaining sections of Shining Force 3 or to release a new Shining game. They gathered at ShiningForceCentral.com, which had become the primary fan site for Shining fans, and began an online petition. Unexpectedly, Shining Force Central founder Mugi received a response from Sega saying that although there were no current plans for a new game in the Shining Force line, they received a lot of fan mail expressing an interest. Mugi continued her campaign to moving to Phase 2. Phase 2 involved several fan bases around the planet that would gather emails and letters that would later be sent to Sega, Camelot, and Climax, yet another studio involved in the Shining series. Shining Force Central compiled a package that included a petition that contained over 2,000 names, but unfortunately ran into some logistical problems. Because the fan packs were sent from multiple places, they lost touch with each other. It's not known whether it happened by coincidence or because of the slight push the fans provided, but 6 months later, Sega of Japan announced Shining Soul in October of 2001. It, however, wasn't the Shining Force game or translation that fans were hoping for, so the campaign continued into Phase 3. With the experience of the last campaign to learn from, Mugi decided to take leadership of the entire project. She personally collected postal letters and printed emails. She checked IP addresses to make sure each of the 5,000 digital signatures on the new petition were unique. She put together a nice-looking package and sent it to all 3 Sega headquarters and Nintendo, as Camelot titles were now made on more platforms. The package must have made an impression because Sega of America responded that it was well received. And though they withheld any concrete news about future Shining games, they implied that they would bring the issue up at their upcoming global software meeting. Sega of Japan was a bit more reserved with their enthusiasm, saying that normally their policy was not to reply to any fan mail from outside of Japan, but in this case they made an exception. And that was the entirety of the message, I believe. After a few years with no new entries in the tactical style, the cliffhanger ending of Shining Force 3 Scenario 1 still taunted English-speaking players, and back in 2002 the Shining series had been rebooted. New games in the series replaced strategic and turn-based gameplay with an action and hack-and-slash style. Fans at Shining Force Central decided to take it upon themselves to translate Scenarios 2 and 3 by starting the Shining Force 3 Translation Project. Project manager Legalized Freedom described the massive amount of effort involved, saying, "We're talking over 250 game files which hold roughly 2,000 to 2,500 lines each, with up to 200 of those lines being unique dialogue lines." He continued, "At its peak, the team was 15 or 20 strong, with members from Canada, Brazil, France, Taiwan, Singapore, and of course the US and the UK. Volunteers were grouped into teams that not only translated and proofread, but did line identification, text insertion, and playtesting. The fan effort has so far released a playable English patch that is updated every year or so, and the entirety of Shining Force 3 has essentially become playable in English. The team goes to great lengths to ensure the legality of the project. The project in no way endorses piracy and does not distribute illegal copies of the game. The instructions at Shining Force Central explain only how to patch official copies of the game, which means you already have to own a legitimate copy of the Japanese discs." In October of 2010, ShiningForceCentral.com started the SOS, or Save Our Series campaign, and encouraged fans to write letters and emails simply stating their appreciation for previous Shining games and that they would enjoy more games in the same classic styles. These letters would be sent to Camelot Software Planning this time around, as well as the 3 main SEGA branches. I'm going to take a little break here to go over a brief history of Camelot. Camelot was originally founded in 1990 as a division of SEGA, cleverly titled SEGA Consumer Development Studio No. 4. They changed their name a bit later to the just slightly more imaginative Sonic Software Planning, which was formed to create the Shining in the Darkness game alongside Climax Entertainment. In 1994, they changed names again to Camelot Software Planning and are still operating under that name. Camelot has more recently been making sports titles for the Nintendo consoles and had an amicable relationship with the people at Shining Force Central, and had even taken time to reply to several fan letters from them. Going back to the SOS campaign, in addition to the letters and emails, dozens of fans created videos of themselves talking to a camera, saying how much they loved the series. These videos were all assembled and uploaded to YouTube to a common account, Shining Force SOS. The SOS campaign was even advertised in gaming magazines Games and Retro Gamer. On March 28, 2011, the letters, emails, petition, gifts, and even copies of the magazines with the SOS advertisements were confirmed delivered, with a cover letter first offering condolences and sympathies regarding the recent earthquakes and flooding, and explaining in detail the purpose of the package and its contents. It was a birthday gift of sorts, also including pictures of fans with their games, as well as a card celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Shining series, and a link to the SOS YouTube channel. There was no response to the SOS campaign from any of the recipients. Emails were sent to Camelot inquiring about the reception of the package, which also yielded no direct reply. On April 10, 2011, Tsuyoshi Sawada, the producer behind current Shining titles, contacted Mugi via Twitter and posted a rude message directly toward her using Twitter's @ function. Mugi quickly translated the message and posted it on her forums at Shining Force Central, but was contacted very shortly afterward and asked to remove it. She complied with the request, and Sawada deleted the tweet. The exact message is only known to a few people because it's been removed from both Twitter and Mugi's posts at Shining Force Central. In the following days, users at 2chan posted in defense of the SOS campaign, but were chastised quickly as 2chan is a Japanese message board, and the Japanese were fans of the newer games and perceives the campaign as an attack. One of the users was rumored to be Sawada himself, but that of course is unverifiable. Debates turned into arguments, and things got heated as more people who claimed to be on various sides made very rude comments about the other. Sawada made further comments stating that, in his opinion, Shining Force Central users were trolls and enemies of the series. To try to clear the air, Mugi sent another tweet directly to Sawada, trying to explain that they were not trolls, that a few anonymous users could not speak for the Shining Force Central community, that they meant no harm, that they loved the Shining series, and generally trying to apologize for any misunderstandings. In response, Sawada blocked Mugi's Twitter account, then blocked her from all the other Shining PR accounts. Official SEGA Shining Twitter accounts will still block users that are asking about Sawada's post to Shining Force Central. Sawada has since deleted his Twitter account, and all tweets have been removed. Things calmed down for a while after that. There was still no contact with Camelot, and Mugi seemed to have decided to back off any more campaigns until tension settled. In June 2012, some YouTube users started receiving emails and notifications from YouTube stating that their videos were being removed due to a claim from Sega citing copyright infringement. The next month, more videos were flagged on the Shining Force SOS channel. This continued slowly but started to pick up speed in November, with many new channels receiving claims and several receiving enough claims in such short order that the channels were completely removed from YouTube before the owners even had a chance to respond. Many of the channels and videos reported were Let's Plays of Shining Force 3 or Shining the Holy Ark, but some of the SOS videos contained no gameplay footage at all, only a person on camera talking about the games. Each one of these claims originates from the same account, the official Sega YouTube channel, with the primary claimant, Fuji Mitsuhito. Mitsuhito himself is harder to identify. He is listed in the credits of a few Sega games under Internet Support, Special Thanks, or Web Design. One of the users affected, Marauder EX, had his entire channel removed from YouTube due to these claims. He was quick to contact Sega and received a response within a couple of days saying, quote, "Hello, we never give explicit permission to use our intellectual property. However, in cases like this, we tend not to take action unless we or our products are being slandered in the derivative works. Best regards, Sega Customer Support." Unquote. Since then, I've personally counted about 15 channels affected by these infringement claims. It's hard to count the channels that got shut down because they obviously can't be found to count. At this point, I'm going to say Part 1 is officially over. You're now up to date on the history of the situation, so from here on, I'll be voicing my opinions about what's been happening. To begin this section, I will be going back a bit. I'm not entirely sure the SOS campaign didn't ruffle some feathers at Sega of Japan. With a language barrier and a pretty radical cultural difference, it's easy to see that someone saying your games need to be saved might be offensive. I wasn't privy to any of the tweets, the 2chan boards, or the emails between Sawada and Mugi, although her tweets are still up if you'd like to see one side of the conversation, on Twitter, at ShiningForceSOS. I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to say that these takedowns could be Sawada himself just using the official Sega YouTube account. And I don't think I sound too conspiratorial to reach the conclusion that he wouldn't care to see SOS ever again, and if insulted enough, may actively go out of his way to remove it. Keep in mind that while the name Fuji Mitsuhito appears on the YouTube claim, that's just the email account tied to the Sega YouTube account, which makes sense. If this Mitsuhito guy is on the web team or internet support as he's credited, then it's logical that his email account would be the one used to create the official Sega YouTube account or any number of internet services. Adding insult to injury, there hasn't been any response from any Sega branch or employee regarding this entire situation, aside from the one received by Marauder EX. I think it's worth mentioning that that particular message was sent from Sega of America Incorporated, and it seems clear that these actions on YouTube originate from Sega of Japan. A few days after I found out about all this, I wrote a small article and posted it on Reddit. It shot up in ranks and quickly became the top post in our games and basically sat there for 9 hours straight. Because of that exposure, numerous gaming news websites had picked up the story, which helped us gain some traction and momentum, but unfortunately have not earned us or any of these news sites themselves a response from Sega, though many have tried to contact them. To further complicate matters, on the 22nd of November, Sega of Japan's official YouTube channel uploaded the first announcement trailer for a new game, Shining Ark, leading many to speculate that this had something to do with search engine optimization. What makes this so frustrating is that Sega hasn't addressed this at all. No announcements about new policies or enforcement of existing policies, and no message even claiming responsibility. There are those that believe this to be the act of an imposter, just someone posing as a Sega employee shutting down channels. To make this a bit more personal, I've been a part of the translation team for the last year, and Shining Force 3 is not just my favorite entry in the entire series, but it's one of my favorite games of all time. Shining Force 3 had become so popular in the Shining fan site that they arranged team playthroughs in which save files are emailed and a single playthrough is shared between a dozen or so members. My channel was started to showcase the newest version of the translation patch, showing people that everything's in working order and all in English. I made it to the end of Scenario 2 by the time this all started happening, and have since hidden all of my Shining Force videos. It's important to know that if any of your videos receive a copyright flag, you basically lose the ability to hide videos, so either I hide them now or get one flagged and lose the ability to hide them. So I'd have to delete all of them. I can't tell you how disappointing this is. My entire channel is going to be old Sega Saturn games and Let's Plays, that's all. I grew up in a Sega house, and the Saturn was one of my favorite consoles ever. I was very excited to do a run-through of Panzer Dragoon Saga or Knights, but that might just not happen now. My YouTube Let's Play career lasted a grand total of about 6 months, and I had to take a little break in that time to get married and go on my honeymoon, so I didn't even get the 6 months out of it. Not that I'm complaining, I enjoyed getting married and going on my honeymoon. I don't think I've mentioned it yet, but almost none of the affected channels had their Shining Force videos set up for monetization, so I hear that argument from a lot of people saying, well, they were making money off a Shining Force game. That's just not true. A lot of people didn't have the monetization set up on their account at all, let alone the Shining Force videos.
Another theory is that Sega may be re-releasing these Shining titles, but personally I find that unlikely in the extreme. Saturn software is notoriously difficult to emulate due to the complex coding originally used to have instructions pass through 3 separate processors. And I don't think there are the fans to call for a complete re-release. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. It'd be cool to have these games re-released, but I don't think that's the case.
The last part of this video is a special message from Total Biscuit. You may have heard of him. Now, he's recorded a special message for me when I told him that I was making a video about this. I've been a pretty passive fan of Total Space Biscuit for a while now, but really started paying attention recently as he's been affected too. Before the claims, his Shining Force 3 videos were the most viewed Shining Force 3 videos anywhere, basically. I'll let you listen to him tell it because he states it better than I do. I know that there are some people out there that don't care for him, and that's fine, whatever. I'm not saying that we all need to hold hands and get along all the time. You can't please everybody. But I think he's definitely the biggest voice we have as he's drawing nearer to his 1 millionth subscriber, which is just ridiculous. Congratulations on that, TB. If we're going to get a response from Sega, I think TB is our best shot. So, work together, I guess, is my message.
Here is what Total Biscuit had to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Total Biscuit. I am a professional video game critic, and I work out of youtube.com/totalhalibut. Now, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I was also involved in YouTube in a very amateur way several years ago with a series called Let's Play Shining Force 3 that was based around the Saturn game Shining Force 3, as you might have imagined. Never really finished that LP, which was unfortunate, but it just happened to be the wrong time, really. Wasn't able to spend the time I needed to get it done, but what I did do was quite popular, and indeed, one of the videos of that series, the first battle, is one of the most viewed videos on YouTube of Shining Force 3 ever, or at least it was. A few weeks ago, I received my first ever copyright strike. I'm very careful with my channel, needless to say, being that my entire income is based on it, to respect the copyright of the various companies around the world, especially when it comes to video games. The GameStation network that I'm a part of has licenses with almost every major video game publisher on the planet, and the majority of videos I create are actually of games that have been sent to me by publishers or developers, whether they be big publishers like Bethesda and Square, or tiny indie development houses. As you might imagine, it was somewhat surprising to receive a copyright strike for a 15-year-old game. Shining Force 3 did come out around 15 years ago. It also came out on the Sega Saturn, which is several generations out of date. It is impossible to buy that game in any legitimate form outside of the second-hand market at this point, and Sega has shown no interest whatsoever in re-releasing the Shining Force 3 series on any other platform. Being one of my favorite games of all time, as you might imagine, this was a very respectful Let's Play, and I put a great deal of effort into making sure that the game was well represented and presented in the best possible light. However, that really is not the concern of the person that is responsible for these takedowns. There have been takedowns on a wide variety of different channels, including mine. Using the DMCA system within YouTube, they have been able to take down 2 of my videos via copyright claims and place 2 copyright strikes on my account. Now, generally speaking, it's 3 strikes and you're out. Thankfully, since I am under a major network, I am protected from such things, and there really is no chance of my channel being taken down by such means. However, there are many channels that are not. These channels have very little recourse, and some of them have already been taken down. The culprit is a single employee of Sega Japan. Just one guy, that's it. And it has come from a legitimate co.jp email address, and we have confirmed that this person is indeed part of Sega Japan and most likely part of their web development and/or support team. So it would make sense that this person was tasked with some kind of copyright policing. However, What is going on YouTube right now is far from protecting one's own interest. This is the problem with the current copyright laws. It is very possible indeed for flagrant and total abuse, and the result is always negative for content creators. What makes this thing entirely more sinister is the speculation that this is being done solely to remove Shining videos from the search algorithm on YouTube in order for the latest Shining game to get a higher search ranking. This is speculation, of course. We cannot confirm that this is the case, but it is indeed logical. Many of the videos that have been taken down were placed very highly in the search ranking, including, of course, my Battle 1, which was one of the highest placed videos when searching for Shining, Shining Series, or Shining Force. To make matters worse, this has also included videos that have no footage of Shining Force in them at all, ergo it is actually flat out illegal to make a DMCA claim against a video that does not actually contain any copyright work by you whatsoever, but it's being done anyway. This rampage must be stopped. It is completely and totally destructive, and if it is allowed to continue, it sets a very worrying precedent indeed that a video game publisher can actually take down videos which do not contain its copyright work in order to manipulate the search ranking of YouTube to their commercial benefit. That is flat out disgusting, wrong, and in many cases actually illegal. As a direct result of this action by Sega Japan, I have boycotted all Sega products on my channel going forward until this issue is amicably resolved. That means that anything published by Sega, which includes stuff like Hell Yeah, Wrath of the Dead Rabbit, I had the highest viewed video of that game on the entire internet. It has now been taken down. No one could see that anymore. No one could see my positive impressions because of this action. Jet Set Radio HD, same thing. Sonic Generations, same thing. And going on forward, indeed, if this issue is not resolved, into things like Rome Total War 2 and anything that Sega publishes going forward. This has got to be resolved, and this is the only way that I can see to get a message to Sega that says, no, we will not stand for this abuse. There is no way in hell this should be happening, and for the love of God, please stop this ridiculous abuse by Sega Japan of the DMCA copyright system. Thank you for your attention.
So that was Total Biscuit. Again, I want to thank him for doing that for me. Also, it occurred to me during my logo creation when I was putting together that snazzy intro screen that a Shining story, while a dorky title, also makes the acronym ASS, which I think is very applicable in describing Sega's recent behavior. I'm doing a lot of research for my next video, and it's going to be about the DMCA, fair use laws, YouTube's role in the claim and counterclaim process, etc. I know many of the people affected or who have questions about this issue are younger, but it bothers me irrationally when I see ignorance and young people throwing around legal buzzwords that they heard on television with no understanding of what they actually mean. If you've made it this far, thank you for viewing. If the DMCA stuff interests you, consider subscribing to me so that you'll know when I